Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour. I'm your host, Matthew Hawkins, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Ed Carbajal. Ed, another week, another day. How's life going, my friend?
Same old, my man. Same old. We got a Memorial Day weekend coming up. The UFC roster is getting a lot more interesting because it's filled with Bellator one fighters that we've been following for years. So there's I feel like I know folks have been complaining about the state of the sport in the UFC lately, but I feel like we've got some maybe the last two quarters of 2025 we'll we'll get to see some fresh new at least division shakeups, mainly the bantamweight division, with Patchy Mix getting assigned while we were off last week.
No, it's working out pretty well right now. We've talked a couple of years about RDAR and Patchy Mix, and Patchy Mix was a part of the whole PFL Bellator situation that we've been pretty vocal about as well. So it's all working out. I would say we're getting close to the purge of guys that we really needed to get out of PFL ASAP. Between Mix and Pico and Pitbull, and I'm sure I'm missing one or two other people.
Yeah, there's a couple of middleweights that need to get the call, but I guess they're locked in fights as far as we know. So
there's a couple there, but there are also some guys there that can really gain from still being there. What's up, Antoine?
Yeah.
Let's So there's a lot to be gained with them coming to the divisions, and I know guys like Musasi and Lima kind of got caught up in that mix, in the especially middleweight, that pretty much careers are essentially being ended. They got into that GFL BS as well, and that's wiped them. But as far as the young stars, it's nice to see Patchy Mix getting in there immediately with Mario Batista, a ranked fighter. Somebody who has a win over Aldo on his resume, so it obviously, fight kind of sucked, and I don't know if it was the right decision, but resume is a resume, and when you get Patchy Mix, you get to fight a guy who has a win over Aldo in your debut. You get to come in and really, you have a chance to really, you're jumping into a pay-per-view card, late notice. UFC's kind of getting into promoting a little bit the guys coming over from other organizations. I know Pitbull didn't do much favors with his performance in the last time, but Patchy Mix can turn that all around and really. I'm hoping he does. We really,
I think he will. I mean, he's not a stranger to, he's fought in the Garden when he was with Bellator. I remember that was the first time he was on the undercard, but when he fought out here so he's no stranger to the big lights and big production, and same goes for Aaron Pico, guys like that. This is interesting. Antoine, who hasn't chimed in a while, saying also it's crazy to see the PFL fighters blatantly go to UFC right after leaving. I'll let you know that where they wanted to be all along. I know when I talk to the interviews I do for Spectation Sports, most of the time when I talk to almost all the time, I would say 95% of the time, especially now because of the way the sport is, when you ask them, 5 years down the road what their future plans are, they're going to say UFC. It's rare that they say something else. I mean, Shane Fichter, who picked up his win in BKFC, is now 2-0 in bare knuckle boxing. He's the only one that said BKFC, because but like it goes to show you when you're talking to fighters on the come up or trying to make their way in the sport that's not boxing. Most of the time they say UFC, so I'm not surprised at that. Even when Coker was running things at Bellator, you had a lot of guys, Juan Archuleta, a lot of guys were saying that they wanted to mix it up with the fighters in the same weight class in their division. Like, you had fighters calling for Bellator versus UFC fights, and right now with the way they've been signing people, they could probably do that. Actually, Combat Sports Today, when was this? On May 18th, they put out a really good post where they said that the UFC, I'm going to read it. UFC should book an all Bellator card as a proper farewell to the promotion, because they have, and he listed all the fighters that are currently contracted: Patchy Mix, Michael Chandler, Pitbull, Kyoji Horiguchi, Michael Venom Page, Aaron Pico, and Alexander Volkov, and that would be nice if they put them all on one card. I mean, I would rock my Bellator hoodie to that event and get tickets.
It'd be a way to throw some shade at PFL too. That would be the best part. You could be like, "Hey, here's a proper Bellator ending for these, world class fighters."
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be kind of fun. It would be hilarious, really.
Although,
go ahead.
Horiguchi was in the UFC, and I know he when they did the Ryzen versus Bellator, he was on the Bellator side. But I always felt like he was more Ryzen than Bellator. Granted, he held both titles, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on Ryzen, because Ryzen's where he really reestablished his name. Bellator is how he kind of reestablished his name in the US, but worldwide, yeah, it was definitely Ryzen. As far as fighters wanting to go to the UFC, I mean, I can't blame them anymore. There is nowhere else to go. It's the only place you can go where you potentially could make enough money to live off of it. That's the difference. Like, we don't have that anymore. I know there's a lot of conversation right now about, issues in the world of MMA, and, the lack of regional money, the lack of regional events, and the lack of regional fighter names is really, a lot of those guys with the bloated rosters of PFL and UFC are sucked into those things and organizations. They just don't really get a chance to develop like it used to be. I know we're talking years ago now, and sound like old men again, but there was a time when the regional scene was popping, and you were going to see people you knew internationally almost fight regionally, and they were working their way up because they'd established themselves. And again, it goes back to when we had HD Net and stuff like that. You had MFC, and you had events
ahead of its time.
But it helped showcase those guys. And I know Fight Pass has its own thing, I guess, but I just don't feel like the level of fighters aren't on those organizations anymore. And that's not a disrespect. They have 1-2 good fighters that, I don't even want to say an organization name because I don't want people to be disrespected, but it's just not as deep as it used to be. There used to be a small stable of fighters everywhere in the internet, around the country, that were all vying for spots, and you knew who they were, and you had a handful of names. This doesn't really exist as much anymore, unless you're really a journalist who, you cover a lot of for Spectation Sports, so you're well more aware of the local scene especially on the East Coast than really, anybody. You're as knowledgeable as it right now as it is. I don't know the guys like I used to. I used to be able to tell you the guys who were in Ring of Combat and Extreme Combat and Extreme Challenge and all that stuff. Now it's those guys. It's a lot of more hobbyists now because
if it wasn't for Spectation Sports and the work I do for them, I wouldn't have been aware of the Therese Finneys and the Trevor Peaks of that are fighting out there now, and a bunch of other guys that are really on the come up. And but
exactly.
I think it's just it's that quote about rising tide, all the ships rise with the tide, or whatever, however the phrasing goes. But I think people, it's more, and I've said this before, we were comparing it to pro wrestling. You have pro wrestling fans and you have WWE fans, and it's the same thing for MMA. Like there's the MMA fans like us and the folks that listen to this podcast, and there's people out there that you could compose a level watching the sport, the entire sport, not just certain promotions, but because of the marketing machine that the UFC is. I mean, a lot of them think that MMA is the UFC, and
but that's becoming less and less. Like it's getting tighter to where if you only follow the UFC now, you're becoming it's enough. It's enough now. I mean, I would be the last person ever on this planet to tell you that. But I don't expect the average person to watch more than one event a week. And if a UFC event is what you choose to watch, that's your choice. Now, I would say I would go, hey, you might want to reach out for a BKFC event, but and maybe 1 out of 5 PFL events is one where it's dude, you want to catch that one. But other than that, I can't really blame them. I mean, I'm not huge on the Apex cards, but I appreciate anybody who's willing to sit down and watch the fights and study them and learn about these fighters, because it's become harder to do. So, but now we, like you said, we get guys like Mix, we get DeRitter, we get some names now from other organizations, and maybe this is the last run of them. I mean, let's hope that one somehow pulls it out and manages to hang around. But that's
it's not looking good.
No, it's not. It's not.
It's not looking good.
it's I don't know. I don't know that we just need the next promoter out there to be born or to show up or something that has some money and some backing. And
well, I wonder if the growth of the sport has kind of soiled like you look at what are those the fight nights at Tech or whatever that Scott Coker and Gilbert Melendez have been, they're on what 3-4 events now. I don't know where to watch them not being able to get tickets to it, but they keep doing it, and it makes me wonder maybe they just got tired of the corporatization of the sport and they just want to put on events old school style, and maybe not worry about broadcasting and all that stuff, and they're just doing something like what they're doing, because it looks like the fighters that we know that aren't signed to anywhere are fighting on those cards, and you know, and it looks like from all the social media stuff I see from those events, everybody seems happy with what they're doing. You know,
I think it's an old school kind of we're just going to break even. We're going to let people get paid some money to fight. We're going to break even. I'm going to make a little bit, Coker, whoever's running the show. I'm going to make a salary. I'm going to make a modest salary, and we're going to put on fights. And it's kind of the old school mentality for regional action. And I don't see, it'd be nice if they were on YouTube and stuff, but it might just not be worth it. They wouldn't get, I mean, for 400 or 500 views, and that's just the reality of it.
I think they could do more if they would put it out there, because I think the right people know about what they're doing out there. I think they could do more, but who knows the decision making? Maybe that's what I'm saying. Maybe they do it because they love doing it. They don't care about they're doing just enough to keep everybody happy.
The Dirty Boxing card that got announced had names. It's interesting to see them kind of expanding and obviously coming up with some money. Like Jessica Rose Clark, I saw she's fighting on it. She's one of those ones that fought on the Scott Coker Tech thing. So you're right. That's where these fighters that are kind of disappeared from the UFC that didn't end up in BKFC are kind of treading water and trying to and doing what they can to keep busy. So it's nice to see at least those things being available to them. And like you said, everybody seems happy at least being able to do that. I feel like we need it, and it's for the UFC's sake too. The UFC is best when they have a competitor pushing them. You want the UFC moving events to the nights of their competitor. You want that because that's when the UFC is like, oh, okay, like we have to do stuff. We need to make an Anderson Silva fight on the fly because Fedor's fighting. Like that, when it's happening, you're kind of like, oh, that's kind of cheesy shit, but like that's but it got you an Anderson Silva fight. Like you need those things to be able to push and promote and not allow for boxing one fight cards, and like that's all the stuff that gets pushed when, hey, next weekend there's a loaded Bellator. Holy shit, that's the talk of the town if the UFC comes at us with a one fight card. And now there's really is no, I mean, there's no UFC this weekend, and there's really nothing really going on. I know there's the road to the UFC, but there, like this would be the weekend you'd think like this would have been the big Bellator tent show weekend, or like, and it's just not there right now. So I don't know. We need that to get better. Patchy Mix obviously getting ads, gonna add fresh blood. We talked about the other divisions. Hopefully he shines and can just I hope he wins the championship. Like I would love, I'd love.
Yeah, I mean, people are talking about how one of the things they asked him on ESPN was how soon does he think a title shot will come to him? And I mean, he seems focused. I mean, that was the other thing because his wife is Tatiana.
I think it's his girlfriend, but yeah,
or fiance, or whatever. Yeah, and he's in her corner every single time. So he even said, "There's not going to be any jitters for me. Like I'm
exactly
I see how you guys do it." He trains that he's been training at the PI helping other people in other fight camps. So it's going to be exciting. It's going to be exciting to see. I mean, we kind of just touched on what Antoine's asking here. How do you guys feel about the upcoming pay-per-views 316 and 319? I mean, I'm more excited because of the other fights, especially the 316 one that's out here by me, though it's going to be in Newark. Like the Juliana Pena, Kayla Harrison fight, I'm very interested in, and then obviously the other fights on that card. I mean, like you talked about short notice Patchy Mix, and I think isn't it Pico on that one too, or no?
I'm not sure. I don't think Pico's a fight officially yet.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I don't think. Yeah, I
But
mean, you
they
got that one. I'm going to be going to 317, so that's going to be the.
Mhm.
I wished it was Islam versus Topuria, but Oliveira
Mhm.
Topuria is still a fun fight. Card came together a little better than I expected, so I decided to do my yearly Vegas run for that one. What 318's Holloway Poirier. I don't really know what else is on that card off the top of my head. I think that might be the Pico, maybe. I don't know. We've seen the fight twice. I'm kind of confused a little bit by it. Um, it I don't know. I mean, it's a great fight. Don't get me wrong. I'd watch it a million times. It seems like a weird retirement fight because Poirier's already
Mhm.
beat him twice, and if Poirier beats Holloway, and he's got a chance to fight Topuria or a chance to fight, Oliveira, he's not going for it again. It would be like, especially Topuria would be like his best chance to ever win the world championship again. It would just be a striker essentially, and we know what Poirier has pretty much done to strike. We did to McGregor twice, so I don't know. Seems weird to me, but and then I do like Duplessis and Chimaev. If
Mhm.
Chimaev can actually show up in the U.S. and fight, that's I and of all the
Yeah.
fights, like I would
Did
not
you
bet.
see?
I wouldn't
Did
bet a
you
dollar
see?
that actually happens. I feel like that could fall
Well,
apart real easily.
when they announced the fight and they announced I forget who the backup fighter is. Even Duplessis was like, "Oh, so I'm fighting the backup guy."
Oh, I didn't know there was a backup. I didn't even
Yeah,
know that. I know I didn't know.
yeah. They had a backup, and Duplessis was right away to come with the. I thought that was a great. Whoever the backup, I can't think of who it is, but he immediately tweeted. They're like, "Oh, Chimaev and the backup fighter, so and then Duplessis was like, "Oh, so I'm fighting, not
Yeah, but
Chimaev,"
yeah,
and I was like, "You know what? He gets it."
we'll see what happens. But yeah, I wouldn't bet on that one happening. I do
Dude,
like
if
the
if
fight. I
if
would like
that
to see the
does
fight.
if the fight doesn't happen because of Chimaev stuff, like the UFC needs to stop with that. Okay, yeah, he's a monster, whatever, but there's obviously issues there.
Well, at that point, you just got to be honest and just
Yeah,
be like, "Hey, he's gonna have a super fight once a year in Saudi Arabia."
yeah,
Like
yeah,
that's what it's gonna
yeah.
be. Like maybe you even get to a non-title fight with the guy. Like Duplessis goes fights in a non-title fight out there. Like I don't know. Like I know that sounds bizarre and crazy, but like you might just have to be honest and be like, "Hey, he can't fight in the U.S."
Yeah.
He's not a criminal, but he's surrounded himself by a lot of shady people in his life, and
Yeah,
that's come
yeah.
back to haunt him. I mean, I don't know how else you would say it, but that seems like that could become a reality for sure.
Well, he
Um,
also had some like bad skin disease once, and then he
he's
had
still,
COVID, and
yeah, exactly. It's nobody's been fast tracked to a world championship more than him, and who's decided to derail himself over and over again.
yeah,
And whether self inflicted or just bad luck, I mean, he would have got a title shot like 3 years ago,
hmm
you know, and we're still sitting here, and um,
yeah. We thought it was going to happen sooner than later.
I mean,
I mean, we should talk about because we did want to talk about um the middleweight division. Speaking of that fight in that division, the Whitaker RDR booking, I kind of saw that coming sooner than I actually thought it would have been Whitaker or Adesanya, because that's a headlining fight. So the fact that they booked it, um, I feel like the RDR has put some lightning in the middleweight division to shake things up. Um, he's ranked number 13 right now, and he's fighting Whitaker, who's ranked number 5. I don't know how you think that fight goes, but I don't. I don't. I feel like Whitaker may have picked up enough damage that RDR, given the reach, and I mean, off the top of my head, I feel like RDR has the reach advantage, and he might be able to get to him before Whitaker can get to RDR.
yeah, um, I yeah, I. You think Whitaker, and then you forget. Okay, well, last fight he had his teeth squeezed out of his head, so
Mm-hmm.
like, that's got to be, he had his face crushed. So
Yeah.
like if I'm RDR, like I'm thinking ground game, rear naked choke, doesn't even have to be that clean. I'm just gonna squeeze and do, like
Yeah.
there's no
Plus, he
way.
even put it out there that he's got some issue with loose teeth anyway.
I mean,
You
and
know.
punches,
Yeah.
jabs,
Yeah.
punches. Like I'm gonna go with what you're saying. RDR needs to win this fight, and not because I don't like Whitaker, but I actually like Whitaker, but
Mm-hmm.
it's he needs to win it. If he loses this fight, then he goes back to fighting unranked fighters, probably. Or I mean, it just the division gets all of a sudden we go from fresh blood, some fresh fights to okay, who's Whitaker rematching? Like that's really what we get, and then we start going, and then maybe you get RDR at Asanya, and that becomes essentially a loser leaves town. I mean, it can turn really quick. So that's why I'm kind of surprised that this is the fight. I almost feel like Strickland would have been safer because even a Strickland win doesn't necessarily mean that he gets another title shot against the guy he's lost twice to. I think Whitaker is not that, and I know Whitaker lost his last fight, but and I don't want to see I don't want to see Whitaker Duplessis, and I don't want to see Whitaker Chimaev again.
Yeah.
But I feel like he kind of, if he were to go out there and really beat RDR, like he's kind of got to say at it. I'm curious who the backup fighter is. If it's not those two guys, if it's not Israel, I mean, Cannonier and like I'm trying to figure who Duplessis.
I forgot who they said it was. You'd have to look at Duplessis' social because he was the one that posted the joke. Like he shared it. I think it might have been Kyle Borrallo. I feel like off the top of my head.
Okay. Oh, that makes sense. I feel like I did hear that in the back. Now I heard some background noise with his name being said. So maybe that's
that's just because I'm looking at the rankings. But I remember there was a B in the name, so that's why that jumped out.
Because like I said, there's not many options, right? Unless you start getting, it's not Paulo Costa. It's not, so interesting. But as far as the line, I do like the headliners going forward for the next few pay-per-views. I think the UFC is in a strong position and it's putting on some good fights. It's when you start seeing signs, when fight week's all of a sudden made on 6 weeks notice and you're hinging it off of another fight, like that's stuff that just never took place before. So I don't know if that's the new norm, or if this is just kind of a one-off, but like the last 3 or 4 events I've been to out in Vegas have been shaky as hell. Like main events have changed, I think, in every event. That's a dangerous thing when you're the only, I don't know. I don't think UFC is ever going to disappear, but I could see some dark days where, ESPN. I don't know. We'll see what happens with their next TV deal and stuff. Because
we'll know by the end of June for sure.
I don't know. They need a little competition. They need a little competition to push them because I think that they're right there. They have all the fighters now. There's no reason for us not to be getting stacked cards. I mean, they have the fighters. They have the roster. Spreading stuff out and stuff. We don't want that. We'll give us to in bulk, and then we'll deal with it on the back end, when we have one slow event here and there. But, 11 fight cards with, 3 fights where it's actually, ranked fighters, and the other 8 or 8 or 9 are no good, or average is just, that gets old.
Yeah.
Especially with the prices they're charging. So we'll see though. But, I keep going. I keep enjoying myself. It is what it is. And it's all about the fights when it comes down to it. And rooting for certain fighters and just enjoying your time. So I like I said, if the UFC is going to run the show, then let them run the show. But let's do it. And getting Patchy mix and getting him a quick fight and getting Pitbull a quick fight. And that's the stuff I want to see. They're not benching these guys. They're not holding guys just to kind of have grudges that they once fought against them, So they're getting them turned around, and get them fights. I'd like to see a quick turnaround fight for Pitbull.
I want to say, back on. Because I feel like even though they got him the fight because he needed it right away, I feel like I want to say Michael Chandler kind of paved the way for these fights to happen the way that they're happening, just because they like you said, he was coming from one of the promotion that was like competing against him, and they're used to not giving them their just desserts or whatever. But then he's obviously down, the company guy, down to do whatever, and they're seeing that these guys, Pitbull's been on the same soapbox, or even when he was in Bellator, he wanted to fight UFC, people, top contenders and champions. So I think they're seeing like these they're finally realizing these. It doesn't matter where they're coming from. What matters is that these guys want to fight. They want to fight for us now. So
Exactly. So I don't know. We got anything else? Oh, gonna throw some stuff out there for those that are listening. I've seen a lot of chatter online about sport events and tickets, and it would be way too long and too drawn out for me to really go in the whole
Yeah.
process and everything. The main thing everyone needs to know, and I don't know why this might cost me a good seat in the future, is all UFC events in the United States, sometimes in Europe, sometimes in random countries, it can be different. In the United States, all UFC events are sold through either AXS tickets, access tickets, or Ticketmaster. It depends on which venue you go to. Madison Square Garden is a Ticketmaster event. T-Mobile is an access event. The StubHubs, the Ticket Gurus, the PickTicks, all of that you see that where there's bloated prices are all resale tickets. Half of them are tickets. When you see tickets for an event that hasn't gone on sale yet, which is what a lot of people see, and then they never decide that they're not going to go, those are seats that are for sale that the people don't even have yet. It's literally a scalper, and that's why there's no seat numbers.
Yeah.
That's why it's only a section or a row, because they literally know that they're going to hit that computer and they're going to steal all those seats, and then they're going to have that section covered. And if they have to move you up a row or down a row, they just do it. There is no real regulate. It's just how it works. So the key is, and if you can message us on Twitter, you can get a hold of me through any of the socials if you have a really question, and if you want to buy tickets, I can walk you through it. Anybody listening, anybody wants to know. But the bottom line is, do not buy your tickets from anybody other than Access or Ticketmaster for the UFC, unless you're getting without checking those prices. Because sometimes the resale, you can get a better deal if you're up to the last minute. That's true, because people get desperate. They don't want to lose money. However, when you're pre-ordering tickets, and that's how it works too. There's a UFC pre-order that takes place about a week before the sale. The Wednesday, there is a Fight Club membership sale. The Thursday, there is a flyer sale or a subscription sale. Here's the clue. The code every single time is UFC Social. So you do not have to buy the thing on Wednesday if you choose not to. That adds to it with a membership for a year. Every Thursday, before it goes on sale Friday to the general public, the people that are super casuals, beat them to the punch. Seats can pop up. You can get frustrated, but if you want to guarantee a seat for the price that the ticket says, and not buying one that's $500, and then when you get the ticket, it says $250 on it. If you want one that says what you paid for it, you got to buy it from those two organizations or companies, Access, Ticketmaster. Again, depending on what your local arena is, and that can be determined easily. Go to type your local arena into those. Go to your local arena or your local location's website. Pick events. Click buy tickets for any event that is at that location, and see what website it sends you to. When it sends you to that specific website, type in UFC, and it'll usually let you know if there's a sale within the next week or two that's coming up. It'll give you a countdown clock and everything. But please, for the dear God, I see these people that a lot of big media members who don't pay for tickets get to make comments and maybe deflect people from buying it. Most of the normal people can only afford to sit up top. That's where we are. If you can afford to sit down below, that's great. But if you need to be able to get in for face value and just to be able to attend a sport you love or attend something that you just want to experience once, you got to do it through those things. Otherwise, you'll be taken to the woodshed when it comes to prices. And now they're starting to show the prices better on those things because of some legislation that went through. You're still paying fees. It's still absolutely nuts. But at least they're showing it to you up front, and you know that it's packed into the price when you are selecting your seat, especially when you're up against the clock and there's people choosing seats with you, and you're kind of want to get going. But that's the thing, folks. The ideal UFC time to buy for the average fan is Thursday of the week of the sale, and the code is always UFC Social. Message us if you have any other questions. Ed can get a hold of me. Anybody, I'll reach out, give you my phone number, and discuss it with you and help you. I'll be happy to help people get tickets to enjoy this sport, because I've had such a good time doing it in person my whole
And
life.
just for reference, because I mean, I know not too many people have found your new Twitter
Correct.
profile, because you always have it on your profile. Let folks know you're not talking out your ass. You've been to how many events?
This will be my 66th UFC event coming up in June, and I've probably bought upwards of 1,000 UFC tickets in my life for the amount, maybe not 1,000, 700 for the amount of people that I've taken to those events over time. I've also bought tickets for. I've got tickets for WWE right now. I got tickets for the Who concert. There's a way to buy tickets to make sure you get the best deals with what you're forced to have to pay. And there's ways to do it. My whole life has been dedicated to going to events. It's just what I've done. It's my hobby since I've been 21 years old, has been to go to whatever shows I can get, whatever. And I've been successful doing it, getting good seats. There's ways to do it. Jumping the gun and paying that and seeing a price. If the price makes your eyes explode, it's probably not real for the most part. Most of them are going to be a little bit understandable. And once you learn the UFC's like real price range, you understand that what it is, and why certain shows are more expensive. And hey, if I just want to go, maybe I'll go catch a fight night in Iowa and I can go sit ringside for what it's going to cost me to get in the door if I go to Vegas. Just how it works. But yeah, I'm happy to help. I've helped dozens of people. I've helped hundreds of people buy tickets. I've helped people online. I've helped everywhere. So I would be happy to help. And like you said, I wish I could get my old account back. Hey, even fans can check it out. It is MMA Hawk 21. You can go on it. I just can't. I just can't access it. So so again, maybe if this takes off and anybody asks questions, I'll use the podcast's Twitter handle if I ever, to kind of get some news out. If I really want to, if the general public has any interest in this, but it is and I reached out to some other people other than just you to kind of put a feeler out, and it does seem like there's a real disconnect between how tickets are supposed to be bought and the average person's knowledge on how to get them, and it's disturbing because it makes me understand how it's why ticket scalpers have been so successful.
Well, yeah, and you said the other thing too is like it's folks in the MMA media that are posting these screenshots of these, and so it's either hey, you're doing it because you're trying to just hate on bring up a negative aspect so you can write about it, or you just don't know what the fuck you're talking about and you shouldn't spread that kind of fear.
That's what got me to kind of think about this is I'm seeing big name media guys, the top media people in the MMA business, tweeting out that they can't afford to go to UFCs and then showing like, I think the one that got me was like, oh, it's going to cost $700 to get into Holloway Poirier. And while it's not cheap, $700 is about $400 over what the prices are that I was literally looking at directly from the UFC. Like it does a disservice. It does a disservice to the fan that just wants to go, and they're being, again, $300 is nothing to scoff at. That's extremely expensive.
Yeah.
But it's not $700. And I think that's what the most important thing to know is they're bloating it out. I feel like you're stifling a little bit of the growth because, and you're not talking about anything So just stay in your lane, talk about the stuff Don't mention that stuff. And again, if you're one of these MMA guys that has been lucky enough to sit ringside,
what the fuck you looking at ticket
for the
prices
last 20 years,
if
you're one of these, I think it's fair to say any MMA media guy that's come up in the last 10 years, likely has, if you just joined since the McGregor era, you've probably never purchased a ticket to the UFC. Why would you? Because they're not cheap, and you get paid to sit next to the cage. So their comments on anything, the fan experience, the price of tickets should be irrelevant if you're one of those people that get $3,000 cage side seats.
Yeah, you're going to get in anyway.
You go anyway, Luke. Not that that's what I'm talking about, but That just slipped. But things happen. I don't know. And let me say, if you're in that level of MMA and you can't afford a $300 UFC ticket, perhaps you should figure out a better way to maybe manage your money. That's all I'm gonna say. And that's it. That's a rant that I didn't really want to get into. But again, reach out to me if anybody has any questions. I'd be happy to help. Explaining how tickets work, how many you can get. If you need more than are allowed on Ticketmaster, maybe ways around that, certain things, reach out to me. I'd be happy to help. Fans can follow the show at Combat Hour on Twitter, Coast to Coast Combat Hour on Instagram. Follow me, Matt Hawkins, at Fight Fan Hawk. Or you can check out my real HUD at MMA Hawk 21 if you just want to look at some of my resume and some of my past posts. You can follow Ed at Carbazol on Twitter, Carbeerzol on Instagram, Old Head Carb on Twitch. Thanks for listening every week, everyone who's out there. Thank you for supporting this podcast as long as you have. We do like shooting the shit and talking and just trying to be real with everybody listening. So have a good night, everyone. Enjoy what fights you watch this weekend. And
have a good Memorial Day weekend.
There it is.